Hello folks, it is time for some more hobby nightmares. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and as we hurtle towards the end of the week, that you're having some fun and are looking forward to the weekend. If you're working over the weekend, thank you very, very, very much from the bottom of my heart for making sure we get to have a nice time and for helping the world go around whilst we all have some time off. I know how it is, it's not great, but hey, we all get through it somehow, right? If you like what I do, then like the video. It means that the YouTube gods smile on my video and push it up so more people can see it. So it's 1 second of work for you, but it means a lot to me, and I mean a lot to a channel like mine. So let's jump into Hobby Nightmares, because I don't have too much time today. I've got my drink here, which may or may not have some interesting stuff in it. And yeah, we will jump in. Cosmic says... Oh, Cosmic, by the way, I had to name generator your name because you used your proper name, your normal name. And I didn't know whether you wanted me to use it or not, so, you know. Anyway, Cosmic says, "Hey North, I'm new to this hobby, and getting back into 40k at the end of 9th and 10th after some time of building, painting, and some learning about the game, I decided to reach out to my local Games Workshop Discord, or Game Shop Discord, to see if anyone would be willing to help me learn the game and polish up. I reached out, and sure enough, a guy who we will call Jensen, and we know where this is going to go, replied saying he would be willing, just be ready to lose." I love it. It's the honest infamy. You can't help but respect that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like the Emperor from Star Wars. You know, he's super evil and he loves it. You know, you gotta respect that. I don't think this is the Jensen, but I like the fact that we're using the name now as like a stand-in for all of these people. Why would you say that to somebody who's new? "Oh yeah, I'll teach you how to play the game, but get ready to lose." It's like, why would you? I took it in good spirit. I don't care if I lose as long as I learn. So I bring my Marines... Oh, my sweet summer child. So I bring my Marines against his Tau, and Jensen from the start is scoffing and complaining because I had brought a knight to fill up my 2,000 points army. It turns out a Knight Crusader can handle itself pretty well. The tables turned, I love it. I earned a lot of complaints about how knights shouldn't be allowed in Marine armies and such. I don't think... I'm not sure they can be. Guys, you've all played 10th edition more than me. Can knights go in a Marine army? I don't think they can. I don't think Imperium Soup is a thing anymore. But let me know. Sure enough, as I played, learning as I go, Jensen offers me no advice, took advantage of any mishap I made at the end, which was round 2, after he basically wiped the board of me, told me to go home and read every book I could about the rules before going on the Discord again. Wow. Wow. Like, don't even show your face on the Discord again till you've read all the rules. So that made me feel some sort of way, but it didn't teach me a lot, including what I needed to add to my army and the placement of units. So I was really shy about looking for players again, as I didn't want to go back for a while until I was sure I could play properly. In that time, I built an additional Tyranids army and Imperial Knights army, all painted and ready to go. So I decided, okay, time to go back and look for a game. I posted on the Discord, "Hey guys, kind of newer player here, so I'm not all that polished yet, but I would love to get a game in. Would anybody be interested? I have 3 armies at 2,000 points each, and thank you." Almost immediately, Jensen, my opponent from before, responds, and I quote, "Of course a Taurus player has 3 2k armies but doesn't know how to play. Ugh." Unquote. When I reminded him that I had played with him before, he didn't respond. Fast forward to the present day. I've got my girlfriend into 40k, as she has a Death Guard army, and we play every few weeks at the game shop. Jensen makes an appearance every so often, at first dropping snide comments before I told him to mind his own business if he was going to just be an ass to newer players. I have a good grasp on the game now, and usually do my best to help new players learn in a fun and informative way. Cheers. Okay, do you know what? You handled that pretty well, man. I mean, I'd be fuming. If somebody said that to me after the way he treated you, if somebody said that to me on a Discord, I'd be fuming. But you know what I've noticed? People who kind of just go with the flow and let this kind of thing roll off their back, they tend to be happier and they tend to get the reward in the end. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we've had many hobby nightmares where somebody's been nice and non-confrontational and then hasn't had a nice thing happen to them in the end. I think there's one thing Hobby Nightmares does right, is that it shows you that the universe does come around eventually, right? And sometimes being a Jensen is punishment enough. Do you know what I'm saying? Don't ever think that somebody being a Jensen to you, whether it's online or offline, means that they're getting something over on you. Do you know what I mean? Or that their life is better than yours. That they're, like, beating you in some way. Because can you imagine being that person? Can you imagine being a person who lambasts somebody online because they haven't quite learned the rules to a game of toy soldiers yet? Can you imagine being that guy? How empty and vapid and vacant you need to be. And devoid of friends and comrades in any way, shape or form. Do you realise how empty that life has to be? Sometimes being a Jensen is punishment enough, and you should just turn the other cheek and get on with your life. I'm telling you now. I should take my own advice, really, but I just can't. And they annoy me so much. Sent says, "Hi North, hope you're doing good. I've lurked on your channel for over a year. I love the lore of 40k and have been keeping up with it since 2019. The reason I'm writing to you is because I don't know what to do. I bought a 2,000 point army of Necrons about 1 year ago at a great price from my local game store. For context, I wanted to finally get into the tabletop side of the hobby, and this was the second time I went to the store. I got all models second-hand and unpainted, but was told the price I paid was a steal. I painted 2 of my warriors, and that was it. North, that was a year ago. No exaggeration, almost a year ago. They have since just been sitting in my closet. I paid upwards of $800+ for nothing, I feel like. I simply don't have the drive to want to paint them, let alone learn about the tabletop. It seems so incredibly daunting for a newcomer like me. I have not been to the store now since I brought my army, and recently found out that they had closed. I really don't know what I should do. I'm seriously considering just throwing them away, as I don't see any reason at all to keep them. I should mention, I played 1 game with them right after buying them, and was beyond lost with the rules. Lost to the point of embarrassment, honestly. Looking at my unpainted, dusty army makes me depressed. I thought getting into all of this would make me happy and I could finally make friends, but I just can't. I don't know what is wrong with me, really. Sorry if this comes off as rambling or whining, but I don't have anyone I could talk to about this. Cheers." Sent. Alright, listen mate, I'm gonna give you two bits of advice, right? The first one is if you want to stay in the hobby, right? The second one is if you don't want to stay in the hobby, okay? Alright, so if you want to stay in the hobby and you're feeling bad because you want to play with your models, you want to do well, you want to, but you're just scared of starting, which can be a thing, right? Dude, I cannot tell you. In university, when I first started my Grey Knights army, I was terrified of putting any amount of paint on them. I really was. Because I was sure I was going to ruin them. Absolutely. And do you know what? If I'm being honest, I did. They look terrible. They look really bad. I'm a big self-loather too, so I'm not the kind of guy who can take those models, put them somewhere in my closet and say, look, I'm proud of where I've come from. This is what I started with and this is what I'm doing now. I'm not that kind of guy. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even want to look at them. And that really sucks. That really sucks, you know? I kind of wish I'd kept them now, but it is what it is. Thing is, when you're going through the hobby and when you're starting, it can be a paralyzing fear. It can be a paralyzing sense of trepidation that you don't want to carry on. You just You're saying, no, I'm done with this. I don't want to go through the stress of doing this. Well, what I would do if I were you, okay, is mine YouTube and other places, but mainly YouTube, okay? Look for Necron Dynasty lore. Go on YouTube now, look for Necron Dynasty lore. That will take you into a deep rabbit hole of the lore of the Necrons, back to front. It'll show you all the things that are cool about them, all their drawbacks, or different things that are going on with them in the current setting, right? Once you've got a sense for that, if you're still not into 40k, then move on to the second part of my advice, right? Because the lore's the thing that pulls you in, the lore's the thing that makes you want to stay. If you're not going to be that much into gaming. If you want to stay around, if you want to know how to paint your Necrons, I can tell you now. Alright? Buy some spray. Lead Belcher will be good. Some silver spray. You want silver. Lead Belcher's good. An Army Painter one is fine. Army Painter silver's fine. Whatever. Right? Chainmail. Any sort of colour like that. Spray all of your models with that colour. Wait for them to dry. Go and buy yourself 3 pots of Nuln Oil. Because you're going to need it. Douse all of your models in Nuln Oil. As much as you can. Blah, just get it all over them. Right? Dry up, big pools of it, if you can. So it doesn't pool. You want a nice, clean, covering of ink there. Let it dry. Buy yourself a dry brush. YouTube a dry brush tutorial, which is literally taking most of the putting some paint on your dry brush, taking most of it off on your hand, which is what I do, and then lightly brushing the model. You're hardly touching it. Right? Use a gold paint or a silver paint for that. Dry paint. That will pick out all of the details on the model and make it look like the edge parts are shining and the recess parts are dark and foreboding, right? Congratulations. You've just painted a full Necron army to tabletop standard. That's it. That's literally it. Okay? You've selected the easiest army to paint. There is no need for you to feel intimidated. And once you've got your army to that level, right? Then you can start branching out, going, oh, what kind of a world are they from? Maybe I'll do a base. I'll learn how to do bases. I'm going to do a base here with some sand on it and some cracked earth on it and some bits and bobs, right? I'm going to do that. Oh, what kind of eyes do they have? That'd be cool. Maybe red. I'll do some red eyes. And you learn as you go. Do the basics first. Get your army painted to a standard where you look at it and go, wow, they look like Necrons. Okay? There was something really cool that was brought up in a stream the other day by one of our guys who, I think it was a Patreon. And, my Patreons are very, very, very smart people. I'm not just saying that because they pay me, right? They are. If you want to be a patron, then the description down below is where the link is for that. Anyway, and he said he's happy with his army as long as his models pass the arm test. And what the arm test is you hold your model up with your arm, right, outstretched. If your model looks decent, it's ready to be played with on the tabletop. You don't need to be looking at minute details. You don't need to pull it in so you can look at every single thing. This is not a golden demon entrance. Stop doing that to yourself. Right? So once you've got your army to that stage, that's when you start adding things to it. And I think what you need to do, my friend, is stop kicking yourself. Alright? That's what you're doing. You don't need to play Warhammer to enjoy the hobby. You don't need to go to tournaments. You don't need to learn the rules. All you need to do is think Warhammer's cool. And you're okay here. It doesn't matter what you do. You can paint exclusively. You can be a gamer who gets your painting done by a professional painter because you can't be bothered. That's fine. Right? You can just read the books. I know multiple people who love Warhammer who don't have a single model. Or they get 1 or 2 models that they really like. They don't have any army, but they read the books religiously. It doesn't matter. You're still a hobbyist. Stop being so hard on yourself. That's if you want to stay in the hobby, right? You mentioned friends here too. What you need to stop doing is... What I think you're trying to do is you're trying to create a shortcut to friends, right? And I've known people who've done this before. Thankfully, I don't think I've ever done it. But I know people who have. Is that they say to themselves, right, I want friends. What's the best way to get friends? Join a club. Okay, I'll go and do that. Try and make friends. Then they go and join the club. They don't make many friends or any friends. And they think there's something wrong with them. No, the only thing you did wrong is that you made the decision to try and make friends artificially. Okay? Just being in Warhammer won't grant you friends. Just going to a club at university won't grant you friends. The only thing that can grant you friends is you. Right? That's it. And what you need to do is to decide what kind of friends you want, right? And go out and talk. Literally, it's the bane of my existence, right? I'm gonna tell you this right now. Of my nerdy friends, I'm probably the most normal. And I think they'd all say that too. I look normal, I dress normal, I act normal-ish, compared to, you know, uber nerds. And so I get the question quite often, I'd like to make more friends. How do I make more friends? Well, dude, you make friends by talking to them. Oh, I can't do that. Well, then prepare to die alone. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes somebody has to tell you this. If you're not willing to go and approach other people, you're not going to make friends. That's just simple is what it is, you know? One of my very best friends I met in a bar I went to, right? And I asked him out like on a man date. I literally said, "You alright, mate? Alright, mate, yeah, how are you? No problem." And we got talking. I said, "Oh, we should swap numbers, go and have a pint sometime." "Yeah, fair enough." So we swapped numbers. We never looked back. And I'm like best friends, you know? Have been for years. And that was it. I just met somebody that I vibed with, that we liked a similar thing, and we were having some fun. Swapped numbers, and off we go. There comes a time when you have to step outside your comfort zone, you know? And I'm going to tell you now, making friends is a lot easier than getting a girlfriend. I'm talking like, in terms of difficulty, nobody's going to reject your advances for a friendship. Like, it's just not going to happen. No one's going to go, "Oh, no, I don't want to be your friend." No one's going to do that, right? If you want friends, think about it, man. Think about it. Who is literally going to look at you and go, "Oh, no, I don't want to be your friend"? You're not asking to sleep with them. You're asking to be their friend. If you're honest in that you want friends, and you go out and you try and talk to people, no one's going to have a go at you, especially if you're honest with them. Just be honest. Especially men. Especially men. If men are sitting there having a pint, it doesn't matter who they are, and you say, "Lads, I'm on my own here, and I'm looking for some friends. You know, do you mind if I sit here and have a chat?" They're all going to go, "Pull up a pew, son. Let's set the world to right, shall we?" You know, that's what they're going to be like. I use the same thing for if you're alone and you want to go out and meet women. Same thing. But you're a bit more cynical about it. You know, you look for women who are having a good time. You walk over there and you tell them that, you know, your mate to bailed on you, so you want to sit somewhere. Can you sit with them? They'll all say yes, because they're nice people. Before you know it, you're chatting away, and they're helping you meet other women, right? But it works just as well with men. If you just want friends, just go out and say, "I want friends." Be honest. Say, "Listen, I want some friends." Doing what you've done then, talking to me, is a big first step. Very big first step. But you can't sit in your room, be on your own, and beat yourself up for having no friends. That is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and over again, and hoping for different results. Okay? Now, if you want to get out of the hobby, what I would highly suggest is that you take those Necrons, you go on the Discord, and you tell people that you've got Necrons to sell. I know of people in the US who want to buy a full Necron army, especially if it's unpainted. And I know at least a few of them are on the Discord. So if you want to get rid of them, there is an option. So but don't throw them in the bin. Let somebody else get joy out of them, right? Take my advice about finding friends and move on with your life if that's what you want to do. You know, you've got $800 sunk into them right now. There's no reason you can't make $600, $700 on them back. Okay? There literally isn't. You'll be fine. Alright? So, that is my advice for you. Baby steps, mate. Baby steps. Alright. We get to the main event of this episode. And that is the end of the Jensen ballad. The tale of Jensen. The new crux, the new avatar of of horridness. Here he is. It's Cromwell who is back again to talk to us about this, okay? Now, there is a picture that I'm going to put on for the Hobby Nightmare. There it is. And that will come up a bit later. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. Alright, Cromwell says, "Hi North, Cromwell again. I'm glad to see you have been enjoying the Ballad of Jensen. It was funny because Banjo and I did not collaborate when we wrote about Jensen." I wondered about that because two of you wrote in about the same guy. That's why it became legendary. We've never had it when two people wrote in about the same person separately. Right? That's amazing. "We both wrote in independently after seeing X write in." Yeah, so X was the first person, ECK, he was the first person to write in about Jensen, and then two other people piped in. Amazing. However, we happened to be on vacation together, and we got a kick watching the episode, getting your feedback, and reading through the comment section. We were thrilled to see that everyone seemed to enjoy the tragedy of Jensen. Something that I realised last time I wrote in was that I didn't do much to talk about my background in the hobby and how I came into being the tournament organiser for my local game club. I started playing tabletop war games in college, almost 10 years ago now, and my first game was War Machine, though over time I transitioned over to 40k at the tail end of 7th edition. I picked up the game more seriously at the end of 8th, and started playing regularly with my friends at each other's houses and at our local game store. A couple of years back, I started working at our local game store while I finished my master's degree, and I became the main point of contact for Games Workshop games and products. Shortly afterward, I inherited a newly formed gaming club, and I've been managing the club as a tournament organiser for the last 3 years or so. In that time, we have grown to more than 200 members, and I've collaborated with a handful of charities to use the hobby to raise money and awareness for various causes. Though I don't play as much as I used to, I love organising events, judging tournaments, and promoting the hobby to newcomers. With all this being said, we turn to Jensen, the only member of our club to ever be banned. Jensen is the type of person who just shouldn't play 40k. He's not a bad person by any stretch, and I previously had perfectly present interactions with him at our shop, talking about movies, family, other hobbies, etc. He was a family man, was well spoken enough, and had a polite disposition. But when he played 40k, he just became a nuisance to be around, and the game brought out the worst in him, as you could see from the previous stories on him. Our club typically runs 2 apocalypse events every year. Much like our narrative events, we go all out to try and shake things up by having unique objectives, battlefields, or custom rules to keep the game interesting. Jensen had participated in 2 of these events, with the second resulting in his banning from the club entirely. The first event was much smaller in scale than usual, and had a lot of brand new players involved. Jensen decided that he was going to participate in this one, and had been talking up a proxied Stormbird that he was planning on bringing. Now, as discussed before, Jensen had previously played games with half-assembled minis, and usually just brushed off criticism with a joke and something about not having time to finish his models because having 3 kids took up all of his time. But when he spoke up about his Stormbird proxy he was bringing, he was so proud, and I bet you're looking forward to seeing it too. Finally, this guy's going to work on something. It's pretty cool. Alright. Happy days. It was a project that he and his friends had started together, and he genuinely believed he was going to blow our socks off with how cool it was. Alright, cool, awesome. And by the way, I don't think this guy isn't shaming people for, you know, having a life outside of Warhammer. That's fine. No one's saying that. Okay? It's just, there comes a time, there's a minimum standard. Glue your models together. That's the minimum standard. Do you know what I mean? I think even people who are like, yeah, stop being so elitist with your painting, even they will say, dude, glue your models together. Have them be actual models. You know what I mean? He showed up to the game with a force of knights and space marines. The knights had most of their parts, but were grey plastic, and the space marines were pretty much just spray primed. He also did not know his knight's current rules, but to be fair, the codex had been released that day, so I allowed him to use the previous codex so the game could move more quickly, and everybody in attendance agreed that was fair enough. However, he had not brought in the Stormbird yet. He was waiting for a grand entrance. Since we had a smaller group, we ended up dividing the game into 3 different tables, and essentially having 3 separate smaller Apocalypse games rather than one big one. On the first table were some of our community veterans, 2 Tyranid players with parade-ready Biotitans and Harridans, and hundreds of smaller bugs of all shapes and sizes. On the other side were 10,000 points of parade-ready Space Marines, complete with a falchion tank, an air wing of over 10 aircraft, and a massive column of tanks supported by a few hundred Space Marines. It was truly epic to behold. Jensen was not at this table. The second table was a mismatch of factions, and most of the players that were newer and had armies in various states of painting. This was sort of by design, as this way we wouldn't have to turn people away, as this was an event hosted by the store, but we could still have the main table with all of the fully painted models for spectators to gawk at near the window. Jensen played at this second table away from the gawking table. The third table was Valhalla, quote unquote. When a model was removed from play at another table, it would deep strike into Valhalla and continue fighting in a free-for-all. That's an amazing idea. That is an amazing idea. Can you... Oh, that's so cool. This allowed for any players who might have gotten hit by an alpha strike to participate later on. Valhalla is very important for later in this story. That's so clever, man. That's so clever. How did you do that? Because obviously if you lose one Marine, that goes into Valhalla, but he's immediately going to die, right? Or did you wait until there was a certain amount of points on each side before you went? That'd be pretty cool. After the teams were assigned and the rules were explained, Jensen departed to his vehicle to get his Stormbird. Now, I am a pretty generous guy on what I say is a valid proxy. We use a lot of kit bash and modelling enthusiasts in the club, and a lot of the times we will let a questionable proxy play if it is clear that there was a lot of passion and good nature put into the building of it. But dear God, what Jensen brought out was one of the most horrible abominations I have ever seen. I am not sure. For those of you who don't know what a proxy is, it's when you're using a model that counts as something else, right? Okay. I am not sure what it was originally supposed to be, but what he slapped on the table was essentially a G.I. Joe helicopter with guns and engines glued and duct taped to it. I'm pretty sure that 2 of the engines were literally made of paper, but just looking at it gave me a headache. It was a glitch in reality, too baffling in nature to comprehend. He placed this thing... I can tell you're getting triggered even typing about it. He placed this thing on the table with the most sincere and beaming smile I have ever seen. This man truly believed it was a work of art. Now, if he was my friend, I would have told him his beloved Stormbird was suffering and should be put down. But he was not my friend, he was a customer and had paid to participate in this event, so I had to allow it per store management. The other issue was that turning him away would have messed up the team balance, and after taking a quick poll of the room, nobody really had an issue with it. Do you know what? I kind of feel for this guy, this Jensen, because what we're losing in the story here, okay, is we're all having fun, making fun of this guy, right? Yeah, and it is fun. But at the same time, imagine working on something that you mistakenly are very proud of, and you bring it into a store, and then they have to do a vote of everybody there to see if your model's even good enough to participate in the event. Do you know what I mean? It's gotta make you feel pretty terrible. I don't know, man. Maybe my empathy is just on overdrive. I don't know. There's a part of me that just dies when, you know, that must have been horrible. For Jensen, I mean. And this is why I want to replace Dave with Jensen. Because it's a much deeper understanding of the nightmare person who comes into the hobby. Because some nightmare people aren't bad people. They just don't fit the hobby, at least not right now, you know? The game started, and very quickly he was not making a lot of friends. He wasn't really doing anything like cheating or tilting, but he was just a genuinely unpleasant person to be around the table. Okay, we took a short lunch break, and one of the players at his table came over to vent. The player said, "Man, like he's just so obnoxious to be around, and his laugh is so annoying." Me, "Yeah, well, unfortunately that's not really crime, dude. There's nothing I can do about it. If he was cheating or being aggressive, it would be one thing, but having an annoying laugh and a shitty sense of humour isn't really a reason to get on to him, you know what I mean? Try to make the best of it. Find your own fun." You handled that well, I will say. You handled that well. I proceeded to give this advice to everybody in attendance privately when they came over to me, and overall, most of the people were having plenty of fun regardless. Eventually, his army got focused down, and Jensen found himself in Valhalla. And this was where the fun began. Jensen decided to place all of his models at the centre of Valhalla, including his Stormbird. He smugly commented that since he had been focused down so much, that he was basically the king of Valhalla. Enter Viking Lord BC, from our previous story, and Iron Father Ulysses S. Grant. The battle on Table 1 had been going largely in the Tyranids' favour, and as a result, their tank battalion and air wing were mostly gone, just in time to drop into Valhalla. Jensen's unpainted army and abominable Stormbird were now staring down the barrels of around 20 Space Marine tanks, a squadron of interceptors, and a twin volcano cannon falchion. After one round of shooting, the Stormbird was no more, and Jensen had pretty much completely been eliminated from the game. All in all, everybody had a good time, and Jensen wasn't too salty, as even he could see the poetic irony of being gummed down by an army of parade-ready tanks, 5 seconds after proclaiming himself the king of Valhalla. The moral of this story is that sometimes you can find your own fun if you just think a little bit outside the box. However, for our second apocalypse event, this was not the case. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of my vodka-laced Pepsi Max. One sec. Evening recordings of Hobby Nightmares just hit differently. I don't know. 6 months later, we are running a much larger apocalypse event where we were raising money for a local animal shelter. All proceeds from the buy-ins went to the shelter, and we had several players and community members donate extra money throughout the day. We had a 3-colour minimum painting requirement this time around, assuring the battlefield was colourful and that all models were complete. Even Jensen followed the rules and showed up with his models assembled and painted, to everybody's surprise. Needless to say, everybody was in high spirits. We had additionally been hyping up this event as we had a special surprise for the players. For this event, it was one massive table with over 42,000 points per side. In the centre of the table was a massive land fortress, which BC had spent months building. This vehicle was the surprise. It was a 5 feet long, nearly 3 feet across, and around 18 inches tall. This was the macro hauler Keeper of Arms. The twist of this game was that it would roll across the battlefield each turn, instantly destroying anything it rolled over. The players could put infantry models on it to try and secure it, and if they had total control of it, they could use its weapon systems, which were comparable to a Warlord Titan. It was a labour of love and was something of a Christmas gift for our community. I've included a picture below. All credit goes to BC for this one, and all have gotten quite a bit of mileage out of this from other events with other clubs. That is what we're looking at. And it's basically what you know the sand people, the vehicle that they're on. It's kind of like that. I like it. Looks cool. Looks really, really cool. How do you move it though with all the models on it? I suppose you can just slide it across, right? Across the table. Alright. Let's carry on. Jensen walked into the store with his wife, which shocked everybody that she even existed. Oh my god, this poor guy. She seemed perfectly nice enough. She said hi to the group and then headed out. Jensen was wearing a shirt that said something to the effect of, "I love it when my wife lets me play with Warhammer 40k. He walked up to several people after she left and said, "Hey, did you see my shirt? Pretty funny, right? My wife doesn't let me do anything. I am the man of my house." Oh my Jesus. Oh my days. Ugh. This was met by a range of responses, ranging from eye rolls to uncomfortable laughter. Fortunately, there was no Stormbird in sight this time. The stage was now set. On one side, the Imperium of Man, and on the other, pretty much everyone else. So, we started the pre-game talk, where we reviewed the custom mission, assigned team captains, and went through a Q&A to make sure that everybody was on the same page. Jensen started asking some questions about the rules that started to indicate that he was looking for gotchas and ways to disrupt the game. Now, this was after our conversation about him being on his second strike, so, seeing as he was playing Tyranids, I placed him between two other Nid players so that they could help keep an eye on him and keep him on the straight and narrow. Additionally, I had a few others tasked with writing down any foul play at the event from anybody. I was prepared to have receipts if we needed to take action. The game started with Jensen making a wall of Gene Stealers around the macro hauler, as they had advanced deployment rule at the time. This prevented anybody from the other team from accessing the macro hauler, and allowed his team to gain control of every square inch of it. Now this was legal, but it was very outside of the spirit of the game. I could have vetoed it, but by this point in the day, we were several hours into the event, and seeing that we had to be finished that day, making everybody take back their moves due to one player's shitty actions would have just made everybody unhappy, so I allowed it. Eventually, the other team was able to gain a small foothold on the hauler, but it was never enough to matter, so once again, they had to make their own fun. One of the rules for the mission was that if either side had complete control of the hauler, then it would plough into a Promethean plant and blow up everybody on the battlefield, ending the game in a double loss. Sorry, if neither side... Okay, one of the rules for the mission was that if neither side had complete control of the hauler by a certain point, then it would plough into a Promethean plant and blow up everybody on the battlefield, ending the game in a double loss, regardless of the score at the time. After finally gaining complete control of the hauler, the Imperial side decided that they would rather lose than for Jensen to win. Oh my god. Okay. They made one final and magnificent charge and were able to get a single model on the hauler, which ultimately caused mutually assured destruction. Everybody cheered as it crashed into the plant, with the noted exception of Jensen, who seemed to be genuinely miffed that Exterminatus was the only answer to his shenanigans. I love the fact that the Imperials could have carried on, but, you know, like, they were just like, no, he's not winning. We'd rather lose and take them down with us. That's amazing. I was fairly preoccupied with running the event, so I didn't get a good chance after the initial setup to keep an eye on Jensen. Afterward, I was bombarded with messages from my team captains and other players with every example of foul play from our dear Jensen. By the time I got done going through everything, I had several pages worth of complaints compiled. Several players corroborated that he would move his models when people weren't looking to prevent deep strikes, kite out ranged weapons and guarantee charges. The NID players said they frequently had to correct him on his datasheets and that they were certain that they weren't watching, that when they were not watching, he was fudging rolls, making up rules, and genuinely brute forcing his way through disagreements with other players. Needless to say, it was enough to have that final conversation. Ultimately, we sent an email to Jensen listing his sins and telling him that he would not be welcomed back for any future events, but that he could still play in the store should he provide his own opponent. He pretended to not see the email, so I reached out and told him he needed to check it as it related to our previous conversation. I didn't get a response personally, but he did call our store, which was answered by Todd. I think Todd's the manager, right? What he described to me was a nearly 45-minute unhinged rant where Jensen screamed over the phone about how he was tired of people conspiring against him and that we were all just out to get him, quote unquote. He denied every instance of bad behaviour and cheating and accused us of just bullying him for fun. At the end, he threatened to take action of some kind, but nothing ever came from that. Word spread quickly that he was banned, and I remember people clapping on our next league day that he was gone. Oh my god, I told the club to be respectful, but ultimately it did feel good that we wouldn't have to deal with him again. Epilogue. Yes, we have an epilogue. Banjo happened to be at another game store up the road a few weeks later painting models when he saw Jensen walk in and start playing with an unsuspecting victim. He told me that Jensen was still playing with half-assembled, unpainted models and seemed to be still playing fast and loose with the rules, often referring to rules from previous editions like they were gospel. Banjo decided it was only the right thing to do to warn the store manager of his reputation and to keep an eye on him, as he would drive players away if kept unchecked. The moral of the story is that some people cannot change or take any kind of feedback. Sometimes you just have to throw the Stormbird off a cliff, full well knowing that it cannot fly on duct tape and paper wings. I think about that Stormbird a lot, as it really is the perfect metaphor for Jensen, a horrible, half-formed heap of plastic completely unaware of the suffering it causes. Needless to say, Jensen is long gone from our club, but we keep his legend alive. No one wants to be Jensen. It is worse than being that guy. The drop site massacre is told to every person who asks about proxies as a cautionary tale. Dude, in a way, you're kind of lucky to have a guy like this being at your store. It's legendary. People have shared pictures of the Stormbird as a meme in our group, and new players who start to show signs of bad habits are immediately pulled aside and told the Ballad of Jensen the Terrible. You mentioned in the episode that the hobby needs jerks to know where to draw the line, and though I would have rather not dealt with Jensen at all, he did make our club better in the long run. But this concludes Jensen Part 3, The End and the Death. I had a lot of fun reflecting on our friend Jensen, and there are more stories for another day, but none as fun or as interesting as what we've already discussed here. All in all, I'm glad to see so many get a kick out of all of this, and I'm glad to report a happy ending as we haven't had any issues resembling Jensen in almost 2 years. Thank you for all you do. And there we are signing off with the final note on Jensen. There we are, and again, I do kind of feel for the guy. I can't not, right? I do kind of feel for the guy. Clearly he has some issues. I mean, what throws me off is that most of his actions seem pretty autistic to me. You know what I mean? Like on the spectrum. But then he has a lot of other signs of being a normal dude. Like he's perfectly fine and reasonable and happy and stable away from the hobby. He has a wife. He has a job. He functions everywhere else. He shows no sign of this anywhere else but the hobby. Which kind of makes me feel that it's not autism, it's just him not being a very good loser or a good player. You know, who's obsessed with winning. This seems like somebody who needs therapy to me, not somebody with a real mental illness. It's somebody who just needs therapy to iron out those edges. But they do exist, they are out there, and that is the Ballad of Jensen. That is the macro hauler, and that is the end of our Hobby Nightmares for this week. I'll be back on Monday for new Hobby Nightmares, and I will be back on Sunday for our weekly stream. So hopefully you can be there and you can join me. I love you all a long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day and your weekend, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.